Hi, this is Fred. What follows is one of two chapters on YouTube of what I hope you'll find amusing or at least entertaining stories. They're from a book that I'm writing entitled Travels with Halifax. It's sort of a cross between A Year in Provence and Gilligans Island, as we spend half of our retirement on an old farm in France and the other half on a sailboat in the eastern Mediterranean. One of the stories is The Tragic and Premature Demise of Maurice. It takes place on the farm. The second story is F is for Flexible, G is for Goat, and it takes place on the boat in Turkey. I hope you enjoy the stories and that you'll consider getting the book when I get it published. Even better, if you know a publisher, feel free to let me know. Thanks for your time and feedback. Oh, Halifax? Halifax is the current iteration of Cats that Jane insists we need to have. The Tragic and Premature Demise of Maurice. Life on the farm is normally cheery, but sometimes tragedy strikes. A tragedy, by the classic definition, is a situation where the protagonist was doomed from the beginning. Oedipus was a tragic hero. We always knew he was doomed. This story also has an unhappy ending for the protagonist. Those of you with deeper feelings and tender sensibilities may wish to bypass the rest of this tale and return to whatever productive tasks you are engaged in. For this is the story of Maurice the mole. Maurice, and undoubtedly many of his relatives, had been happily burrowing in our lawn for quite some time, judging from the state of the fairway. Since I don't own a lawnmower yet, the thought of inviting André, our neighbor and farmer par excellence, to park his dozen cows in our lawn for a while had occurred. André's bovines had proven their success as surrogate lawnmowers in a recent tenure in the backyard of our other neighbor, Jacques, the village priest. However, the minefield of moleholes in our lawn could apparently cause cows, whose cranial capacity does not cause the scales to dip significantly, to injure themselves. Last week André and his wife were over for a drink. André is 70 years old. He, like many of the folks here in Burg, lives on the farm on which he was born. He knows the land. We discussed our mole opportunity. André recommended that we remain calm and promise to be back the next day. Those of us prone to watching adolescent movies may remember Caddyshack, a movie centered on a country club, memorable for the bit that Rodney Dangerfield plays. The golf course in question is suffering from destructive tunneling by malicious gophers. A recurring subplot has Bill Murray, the groundskeeper, taking progressively grimmer measures to eradicate the culprits, culminating in the deployment of some fairly serious artillery, none of which has any impact on the rodents. I had visions of Maurice laughing at André as he continued to wreak havoc on our meadow. The next morning André appeared with a shovel, a 4-inch pointed wooden dowel, a steel rod with sort of pliers at the end, and 2 mole traps. The traps are about 8 inches long and look like steel barbecue tongs. We went for a walk to find the moles. He rejected molehill after molehill as not being right. Finally he found one he liked. He looked at it and pointed towards a nearby outbuilding. "Ze mole, she tunnels there, then there. Then she sleeps next to ze old barn, where it is warm." He actually said it in Southernese French. I'm improvising to convey the feeling. Being a bit of a non-believer, I was skeptical of André's analysis of mole behavior. But this was not a laughing matter to him. He was very serious. "Next we find ze tunnel," he said. He took a long rod and began poking the lawn around the molehill. He found a soft spot. "Now ze other side of ze tunnel," as he poked around the opposite side of the molehill for the other end. Once he was satisfied that he had located both ends, he cut a square clump of dirt with the shovel and removed it. With his pointed dowel he poked an opening in the tunnel on both sides. He then set the traps using the pliers end of the rod. The traps operate like longitudinal mouse traps. He placed one in each opening. The traps each had a piece of twine that he left above the ground to allow them to be pulled up later. He then replaced the dirt. "Ze mole, she comes back through here in the evening to go to sleep there. She will hit the trap and poof! Le problème is resolved. We come back tomorrow and check the traps." Okay, I was polite, but it seemed a bit optimistic. Andre cautioned that the ground was wet, and that's not good for trapping moles, but he felt pretty good about his strategy. He left a shovel and trap in our lawn. You can do that in a small town and feel confident that it will still be there the next morning. Jane and I were just finishing breakfast the following morning when there was a tap on the window. There was a very serious Andre with one of his traps. The trap held a very large, recently expired black mole. Maurice, the mole, had met his match in Andre, the farmer. I was stunned and a bit embarrassed at having harbored doubts. Andre removed the mole from the trap and offered it to me. I declined, not daring to ask what he would propose that I do with the body. Handling recently departed rodents with my bare hands is probably never going to be part of my skill set. Jane had gone back into the house as soon as it was clear that there was a corpse. Andre said he'd be back with a set of traps once the weather was good for mole trapping. This was apparently just to make me a believer. "You have to get 'em all," he said. Then he wished me a nice day and walked off. This is Fred in Burg.